you know, I don't know.
What
about you guys?
Well, we started, but we're 13% in person, only labs, basically the labs are in person and everything else is remote, but we moved students back into the dorms and students came back to town, even if they're all remote, they had the option of coming back. So we have lots of students in town, but so far so good. They've had about 10 cases in the dorms now. And then they have one whole floor of the dorms quarantining now because of, a lot of our older dorms have shared bathrooms and stuff. So once if somebody on the floor gets it, but so far it seems to be going okay. But California, our bars are still closed and will be for at least another 6 weeks because of our tier system. They don't get to reopen until the very last tier. And so that'll help us now that the students are back in town to have all the bars closed.
I mean, you could argue the other way too, it's, but yeah, we don't have indoor dining yet. So I don't know. I don't know how all this is working. It's all very confusing. Yeah. My big issue is that my school is almost 100 years old, and so our ventilation is open windows. So whatever the temperature is outside is the temperature inside, and it was 40-something degrees the other day. So we had to bring in blankets and hats, and it's a little wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Did you all hear about, I think it was the University of Illinois, there were like 2 physics professors who decided to take upon themselves doing an epidemiological model of how to do the reopening plan. And they're like, oh, we're physics professors, epidemiology is easy. But then their model didn't take into account that students party. And so it completely fell apart. And it was just like classic, like physicists think they're all, hot stuff, but actually they don't always know what they're talking about. Yeah.
Models are good if your assumptions are good.
Right.
It's all in those assumptions. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I think it's 4:05, and so I want to be sure that we give Iowa Chris, plenty of time to talk to us today about his software. I think most of you hopefully know Chris. Chris is a former master AP statistics teacher in high school. He also has served as an assessment specialist within the community colleges in his area. He's taught at Grinnell College, and he's now a professor at Grinnell, I can't say it, College. And Chris is a textbook author. I love a quote from Chris. I think I got this off your website, Chris. He is perfectly happy to solve problems or prove that they don't exist, which I just think is a great quote. I've known Chris, Chris, how long have we known each other?
Oh my gosh.
1995?
Yeah, it must be.
Longer than that. And Chris is just a dear, dear friend. And we love to talk baseball. We were actually talking baseball earlier today about how we're not happy with having to watch artificial baseball, but we'll take what we can get right now. And how I figure my Braves are going to break my heart once again this year, once the playoffs start. So with that, though, I'd like to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to talk to us about his open source software.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Georgia Chris?
Georgia Chris.
Now I've got to figure out how to do all this stuff. I think I did Zoom all summer, and now I'm in the Blackboard in my shop. And so I'm clueless how this is gonna, let's see, I think I start this, and then I say share screen, and it's gonna be screen 2, it looks like. And then I say share. How does that look? Are you seeing anything that looks like a PowerPoint? Yes. Okay, so what I thought I would do is just give you some background, a little bit of how the software came to be, and then get through that, and then maybe just demonstrate a little bit of stuff and hope that it doesn't blow up on me. So any questions that you have, if you want to ask it, please at any time, just ask away. Chris mentioned that this is open source and whatever, and I'm not all that sure what that means, but in my case, what that means is that it's like free. So anybody who wants it, why just grab it? You know, like all of us in teaching, we whatever knowledge and whatever we have, we're happy to dispense, or ignorance in my case, we're happy to dispense really at no cost, well, except for the taxpayers. So the program, or the bunch of programs, whatever the correct terminology would be, is called Splat. Of course, the first thing you do when you are writing software is you start with some really cool acronym. I didn't do it that way, but now it's a statistical package for learning and teaching, is what I claim here. Now I've got to figure out how to, oh, there we go. So Splat actually started out in California at the Embassy Motel in, what's the name of that place? I can't think of it. It's somewhere or other. I was dining with an AP biology consultant, and she asked if I would help her with chi-squared. I said, well, I'll see if I can do that. And the question was, what do you do if you have an expected value of 0 in chi-squared? And I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe we better start back at the beginning. By the end of the conversation, I don't know how many drinks I'd had, but I promised to write a chi-square program for her that she could use in her workshops and then pass along to the teachers. From there, it developed beyond all expectations, but these were the humble beginnings. That part of the chi-square of Splat, that's chi-square, is the oldest code that's there. It's the code I'm most ashamed to look at when I look at it. After that, the development of the software was pretty much along these steps. I teach 2 different stat classes. The one, what we call 115, is sort of the baby stat. These are students who are liberal artsy students, and many sociology, psych. They're not overly sure about their mathematics. And of course, they would see our software of choice in our department, which was and is Minitab. And these youngsters would be sort of blown away by Minitab. And so somewhere along the line, I thought, well, maybe I could write something that would be a little easier for them, ease them perhaps into Minitab. I also started using this in my workshops. What I wanted to do with my fellow high school teachers was convince them that doing statistics with computers has all kinds of advantages, just like doing it with the TI has teaching advantages. And so my initial attempt was to bring JUMP, which is, as those of you who know me know, that that's my stat software of choice. And I got a CD from the folks at JUMP, and I would carry that around to workshops. And but it was kind of problematical with the IT people typically, and it was just kind of a pain. And so I started just using this rather than the JUMP. One of my goals was to eliminate money as a roadblock for teachers using who wanted to use statistical software in their classrooms. Teachers would say, well, you know, we have a budget and software costs this much, and that just seems like a lot of money, and so we don't get it. Okay, fine. Somewhere around, I don't remember when we found out that there was going to be a new course description, but what I also wanted to do was, as I became a little more knowledgeable about the new AP course description, try to include everything that was in it. I regarded my prime audience, my prime target, as the AP Stat course and AP Stat teachers, helping the AP Stat teachers. Now, I look at this as trying to solve all of those problems, or at least address all of those, but also in our new normal, if you will, remote, online, with students who have limited connectivity or none if they're not in the classroom. The Splat is, how shall I say this? It's not cloudy. It's desktop. It stands alone. If the student has a computer at home, a decent computer, by that I mean 64-bit, 64-bit bytes. If they have that kind of capability, then they should be able to use Splat without too much difficulty. The prime target audience, AP Stat folks, but what I also wanted to do is write it in such, well, first of all, write it in such a way that the original AP Bio people could actually use it, which I interpret as folks who might not be using a lot of software. They might be overly, they might not be overly facile with software. The software might easily confuse them. But also, many of the folks in my workshops would say, well, we also have a non-AP Stat class that we have. It's a semester class, and here's what we do. And so I wanted to make the software easy isn't the quite the word, but easy to use so that teachers could use it in second-year algebra or that pre-AP Stat class, whatever it is. And then also, I also at some point decided that I wanted to make something or add something so that those AP Stat teachers that got done, there's the exam, and then they had 2, 3, 4 weeks after that they could, if they wanted, extend their stat class beyond what was actually in the AP Stat class. So I would say, while most of this stuff is designed or planned or structured around the AP Stat course, I would hope that teachers in a pre course, stat course, and then teachers who wanted to extend their knowledge to other stuff would also find it useful without having to go out and buy the professional software. My goal is to put everything in Splat that's in the Ann Cannon's book, the Ann Cannon and Half the Civilized World, Stat 2. There's still some things that I haven't quite put in there, but I'm pretty close, I think, at this point. As I wrote this, there were some design principles. That sounds, that sounds awful good, but design principle sounds pretty haughty also. My first design principle from the very beginning was that, and I guess maybe I should say this is partially based on my experience with, I don't mean to single out Minitab, but it's what I've had most experience with in the classroom. That my students many times found Minitab a little difficult. I mean, Minitab is wonderful, it does nice things, it's all good and all of that, as long as you're a statistician. But if you're learning the statistics, I think many of my students, and my 115 students, felt that the software was an additional problem to learning the statistics. So what I wanted to do was try to write this software so that a student could, well, basically so that the software would just simply recede into the background and the student could learn the statistics and there was no additional difficulty with the software. So that was kind of my first design principle. If you're learning statistics, then you're not going to look at software the same way as you do after you've learned the statistics. Okay, mouse, do this. Okay, so the statistical packages, whatever their nature, in my opinion, should not overwhelm the learner. And what I found was, over the years, that Minitab would do that. This is, again, I absolutely don't mean to pick on Minitab at all, but I'm sure that Jump is a bit this way. I'm not familiar with other software, so I can't single them out. But if I go to a menu in Minitab, I see all of this stuff on the left and all of this stuff on the bottom. It's statistical procedures that my students are not going to use, or that AP students may not use, or whatever, whomsoever. And so from my perspective, that's a lot of stuff that draws their attention. It's stuff that they think they may have to attend to when really not. And however much I say, okay, guys, we're going to use the graph stuff and the stat stuff, and that's kind of almost it. They still are confronted with all of these other things that I think they find difficult. My menu, the menu in Splat is in the upper right. It is what I would take to be a simpler menu. That is for the AP class or pre-AP or that for that student who is learning at that level. This menu has stuff that they will use, and it doesn't have an extensive list of stuff that they're not going to use. Whoops. So in Splat, one of my goals was that they could get to where they wanted to go in few clicks. It didn't take them 15 clicks to get what they wanted to do. And it's structured so that no matter what procedure that they're using, the user interface is going to look the same. In this particular case, I'll just sort of, I forget now, but I think I put this in 4 steps. Almost anything that a student wants to do with Splat is going to be a 4-step process that actually just looks all the same. That first step is to tell Splat, well, what do you want to do? So I'm going to explore data, bivariate data, linear regression. I've decided that's what I want to do. I also, in my dreams maybe, but what I try to do is say, if I'm a student, how am I approaching the data analysis problem? Or how am I approaching the statistics problem? In what order do I ask the questions? And what I tried to do was structure it so that as the student goes, they're sort of burrowing down to getting answers to whatever their questions are. And this is, I learned this from Jump, I think, because I think that's what they do marvelously. But here I've got click, 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 and oh yes, I want linear regression. Step 2, if for everything except chi-square, I think, and then maybe chi-square, the student says, well, what variables am I analyzing? And the choice of variables panel thing will always look like this if you're choosing 2 variables. If you're doing something univariate, it will always look like this, except there's only 1 variable, one choice to make. You'll still have the list of variables on the left. You'll still have that little arrow. You'll still type in whatever you want to call the explanatory variable when you get graphs. And it will be, I'm thinking, just very soothing to the student because it all looks the same as they go through. So they say, they pick the variables and whatever. Then they get to step 3. Step 3, quote, step 3, unquote, always looks like this. This is for lack of a better term, I'm not sure dashboard is right. That's just what I've settled on. What I want the software not to do is say to the student, okay, here's what you ought to look at from the beginning. I want the student, when they are addressing some problem, to at some point say, okay, what is it that I want to see? And then they assert themselves, if you will, and then choose which of the items that they want to see. In this case, regression. They have 4 choices. Univariate data that I'll share with you in a while has entirely too many choices in this row. But what I wanted to do was say, okay, student, at this point, here are your options all lined up for you. And then step 3, they can choose any or all of these. They can, I want a scatter plot, or I want a scatter plot and a residual plot, or whatever. And then of the ones that they choose, what I want them to be able to do is put the results, if you will, the panels on the screen wherever they want and however big they want. I want them to be able to arrange the panels on their Titanic, their board, as they see fit, not how Jump wants to put it or Minitab wants to put it. And I want the teacher to be able to do that too. I want the teacher to be able to say, oh, well, for these data, let's look at the box plot and stem and leaf or whatever, and then arrange it on the screen at whatever size they want. So if Leonardo DiCaprio, you guys are all, as far as I can tell from looking at your pictures, you're all too young to remember the movie Titanic. But if Leonardo DiCaprio arranges his deck chairs, he says, okay, I want a stem and leaf, dot plot, and here's where I want to put them. If Kate Winslet arranges her deck chairs, may look like this. So whatever the student wants to see, wherever they want to put it, or teacher, and however big or small they want. There is somewhat of a limit that I need to go back and worry about. In the upper left here is the stem and leaf plot, and there are 3 choices here. 1 line per stem, 2 lines per stem, 5 lines per stem. What I haven't figured out yet, what seems to work sometimes and not work sometimes, if the little box is too small, this first line of choices goes off to the left. And so what I've done is put minimum sizes on these boxes. Excuse me. And that's something I just need to go back to. I want them to be able to size them whatever they want, even if it's small. And then their final option, their step 4, so to speak, when they get to the plot that they want, they may have some other choices. Here, this is the regression. If they want to see a best fit line, if they want to identify points as outliers or influential or high leverage points, they can do that. I basically took for influence, I think, Cook's D and leverage, the standard hat thing definition, and then just took for whether it displays it or not. I just sort of I looked in my multiple regression books and took the views of the authors there. So, well, I'll show you that when I kind of demo some stuff here. I also, another design principle number 2, excuse me. What Minitab would do that bothered me to no end, a student would do something. The most likely thing, as I think back, mostly what I saw was they would be entering some data with decimals in it, and they would hit a comma. And of course, Minitab is going to argue with that. And I don't remember what the message was, but it was like boop and something that the student had no clue about, and they couldn't get out of that. It would not let them get out. And I don't remember now how to get out of that. But I would find myself going over there and saying, oh, what's happened here is that you put a comma in there. And so here's what we need to do. We need to go to the data column and change numeric and do all that stuff. What I wanted to have happen is the student didn't worry about that. The student enters a comma, and then as immediately as possible, the machine knows that, or the program knows that, and says, hey, you entered a comma here. We need a number. This one on the left is if they're finding the area in a normal curve, they put the number on the left is bigger than the number on the right. So they get this little message. It tries to tell them immediately what the problem was. And I think what I also tried to do is make the error messages sort of lighthearted. I don't want them to think that they messed up. I'm sure they know that they did, but I just wanted them, rather than say, oh, drat, that they would say, oh, okay, fine, and then just continue. This one on the right is, I think, other than a positive integer, I think this came from chi-square somewhere. If you are asked for an observed count, for example, you put in a negative number, you get this kind of stuff. And I wanted it to be, I really wanted them to think they didn't make an error, they just picked something and now we're going to have a little fun with them. Informative, non-threatening, not totally non-threatening though. There are some things where I try to threaten them a little bit. Here, if they're doing regression and they put all of the data points on a straight line, I suggest to them that that's just not the kind of thing that we do in statistics, and they need to fix that. Design principle number 3, make it easy, that it being using Splat, make it easy on the teacher, on the IT folks, and the cherubs. And so here's some of the things that I tried to do that, frankly, it took me a long time. For those of you who are kind of programmer folks, you know that back in Java 8, they used to put everything in Java 8, and you could download that, and then Splat would run fine. And then they messed everything up, and from then on, just to install the software was a big pain in the neck. Now with Java, we're up to Java 14, 15 now, I guess. But now it once again is easy, relatively easy to produce a download that is an easy install, and that's definitely what I wanted to have happen. Now you can download Splat from Dropbox. Installation is a piece of cake. It works just like all other installations. The Mac people will find it more difficult because Mac is very picky about who it lets put stuff on the computers. Splat, or the Mac will tell their Mac will tell the user that Splat is that file's corrupt. I think it's the file that's corrupt, or not maybe the programmer, because they think that this is malware. And so getting around that is a bit of a problem for the Mac people, but only slightly for the PC people. But basically, bottom line, I wanted teachers to be able to install it easily, just like they would install software at home. This is desktop. There's no login. There's no password. There's no big brother or big sister out there that you have to connect to make things happen. You just do it. Whether you're a teacher in the classroom or you're a student at home with little or no connectivity, it all still works for you. The data file format for Splat is comma separated variable, which is a generally accepted file format. They can read and write CSV files using Excel. They could use Excel. Actually, if they got some kind of file from out there in the big bad world, Excel, for example, could probably convert, read that file, change it to CSV, and then they're okay with Splat. There's no license to this. I'm told that I should somehow license it, because if I don't, someone could actually take it, claim it as their own, copyright it, and then sell it. You know, I'm just not, in theory, I suppose I might worry about that, but I have other things to worry about. The data entry in Splat recognizes that for many teachers, their experience, and AP Stat teachers, their data entry experience is the TI way. That is, there are lists of data. If I have 2 variables, there's a list 1 and a list 2. It's not like, for example, Minitab, where group identification would be in one column, and then the values would be in a second column. But you can, your students or whoever can enter data in Splat either way, and it works. Okay, I think, yep, okay, there we are at the end of the PowerPoint. Let's see, now what I want to do. I want to find Splat. There we go. Oh, let's see. So what I think you should be seeing, if I'm still doing this right, is a little kind of a spreadsheet affair. Are we okay with that? Are you all sleeping out there?
No, we see it. It's good.
Okay. So I'm still okay with the screen too. Okay. So what I'd like to do is just go through a couple of the things that Splat does. And again, as you have questions, just shoot them to me and I'll see what I can do. So I'm going to open a file, and let's see if I remembered where I put all that stuff. Desktop. Oh, I put them here. No, I didn't put them there. It's going to come to me. It should say CSV somewhere. Ah, there we go, CSV. Stamford Yonkers. This is a file that I don't remember where I got. Something about weather. I think it came from that old Cleveland book, analyzing data back from the 70s or 80s, something like that. The missing data in Splat is indicated with an asterisk. But if you read data in, sometimes there might be errors or there would be non-numeric numbers. And I purposely put this in here to illustrate the Splat's response to this. So I note that there are decimals or periods or whatever here, and that's not numeric and it's not missing. So what I can do is clean the data. Clean column data. Oops, this is over. I need to bring this over here. The variable is Stamford. I don't need a description at this point. I compute. Bring this over here. So it's found a decimal here. I realize that that's incorrect, and I'm going to change it to an asterisk. I click, asterisk, old and new appear. I'm fine, and I go ahead. I tried to make this so that students who would be working together may have variant spelling with categorical data, and so the sort of cleaning capability it's minimal, but it's hopefully there. So I can, with data exploration, univariate data. Again, I tried to make this so that the student could get to wherever in not very many clicks. So explore, univariate, could be quantitative, categorical. In this case, it's quantitative. What do I want? Well, I want Stamford. And again, all univariate input is going to look like this. Stamford, and I don't actually remember what this is. Something about weather. Okay. Compute. Oh, oops. Oh, duh. I'm getting an error message. So this pops up. I followed the wrong yellow brick road, wicked witch of the north, blah, 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 blah. So what's happened is that I need, after cleaning the data, I need to go back and tell Splat that this is now numeric data and update it. Okay, now then I should be okay. So again, what I'm trying to do is, as the student may make these errors, it tries to say, here's what you did, here's what you need to do to fix that. Okay, Stamford, and whoops, and something weathery. Okay, and it wants to put it over here on the screen number 1. So this is my biggest dashboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so some horrible number of choices. Entirely too many, but what can I say? I'm going to put up a histogram just to illustrate that I still need to work on these graphs. This isn't too awful bad. I can have more bins if I want. I can have fewer bins if I want. That's kind of along the lines of choices. Stem and leaf. Now here again, I can move this where I want. I can make my choice, 1, 2, or 5 lines per stem. On the histogram, on both of these scales, I can click and drag on the scales to adjust the histogram to where I want. That is true of all of the quantitative scales. The horizontal box plot, vertical box. If I want a means diamond that I learned from JUMP, I can get that. Students may at some point say, well, I want to look at the mean and the median, and I don't want to go over to print stats. I want to see it all at once. So there it is. Let's see. And the way back, so to speak, is just clicking in the corner like it ought to be. Let's see. So I'm going to see if I can, let's see, where's my kimonos? Fear factor. Well, I'll take delivery time. So I'll just to illustrate the regression. Again, I want to explore data. This is bivariate data. I have my options here and linear regression. Let's see, delivery time, response variable, number of cases. And these are the, when the data were inputted, the sort of what I refer to as the labels are here. And there's an option to change what that says. So I'll just say N cases. I usually, but not always, I can tab forward and backward, especially with chi-square. My response variable is timey-wimey, okay? Save the residual, sure. Save the fits, sure, why not? Compute, whoops, come on, baby. So if I want a scatter plot, I can get the best fit line now. If I'm not now remembering if this has everything that I'd like. So I can move the scales here. Okay, this was one. As you know, the new course description has added influence and leverage as specific quantities. What I tried to do here is get across the idea of the relative amount of leverage, or of influence in this case. So if I have a number that's more of an outlier, then it will have a larger circle. If it has greater influence, the point in the upper right here is more influential than the one in the lower left, so the plus is bigger. So I tried to give students some idea with the graph of the, graphically speaking, the relative amount of the influence. Same thing that they can do the same thing with the residual plot. The regression report is the standard garden variety report. There are two levels of regression. In AP Stat, for example, you may see regression early, and then later you come back and do inference. So the early regression analysis just give you the basic stuff that you pretty much would see on the AP exam. The later stuff, well, let me see. I'll just say inference, regression slope, delivery time, number of cases, compute. The later report, regression report, gives you more stuff. So there's two different levels of this depending on where you are in the course. I give 95% confidence intervals for all the parameters. And you can also, the diagnostic report, this is for those guys who are beyond AP Stat, who actually have kind of an idea. This would be not me, but some people apparently know what all this stuff is. Some of the panels, and this one is one of them, are apparently pretty picky about where you can make them bigger. Some of them seem to say, I don't care what you want, you've got to drag from the corner here to actually make me appear. And you can get a normal probability plot of the residuals. I also, again, just for those people who may want to extend themselves or their students a bit after the exam, I calculate the Anderson-Darling statistic, stat summary. Now, I'm going to right-click here just in case. Aha! This is, again, something I tried to build in to help teachers. I basically right-clicked on the regression diagnostics, and I can make them big. That is to say, if I want to project to the youngsters in the back row, I can do that. I can make them small, I can make them big. Surely not all of these will work this way, but eventually my all of them that appear to be text-based will work that way. Let's see, stat summary. Beyond AP statistics, analysis of variance, one-way, two-way, as you know, again, in AP Stat, there's the completely randomized design and the randomized block design. So I built those in for those teachers that may want to do that, or sometimes a student may have a project that involves something like that. Regression, multiple regression, logistic regression. And Chris, Georgia Chris, I still owe you a bottle of wine from finally being able to do this logistic algorithm, and then multiple logistic. For probability, I can normal distribution. I basically find areas under the normal curve. Let's see, mean 5 and standard deviation 5. Oh, wait a minute, better not do that. 3 maybe. Middle 0.95. Let's see. Now, for some reason, I'm not seeing the two-tail. I have to remember how to do this, and I'm not. Oh, there we go. So I can get the left, middle, and right area. I can do that with the t, the chi-square, binomial distribution, and of course now that geometric is there, the binomial and the geometric work pretty much the same. 0.3, I guess. And so I want the probability of less than 5. So I get the basic, here's the less than 5. If I want to see the probabilities, I can see those. Quartiles, if I want those. Mean and standard deviation, if I want those. It works the same way with the geometric. Planning a study so far is just power. So power for a single mean. I'm testing a two-tailed hypothesis. I think my mean is 8. My standard deviation is 2. I want to be able to detect an effect of 0.2, let's say. I have a sample size of 34. Whoops. And compute. Once again, the same song, different verses. I can, here's the some indication of type 2 error and annotation. This is in the original scale. I can get the relationship between power and the effect size, power and the sample size. Doesn't look like I have much power here. Power versus alpha, and then an actual power report here. So again, I tried to put stuff in there that is mostly in the AP syllabus and try to provide some kind of graphic assist for teachers as they would be teaching the stuff. So that's pretty much what Splat does. Do you have, and I would, if you want to play with it and download it and play with it, I absolutely would appreciate suggestions for improvement. Questions? No, I guess not.
You overwhelmed them, Chris.
I guess so. It must be the coffee. Okay, well, we'll send it back to you, Chris. Georgia, Chris?
There has to be questions. Anyone want to ask anything?
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
First of all, thank you for showing this to us and giving us such a full demonstration. That was wonderful. And I've downloaded Splat before and I played around with it, but I had not made myself fully aware of all these functionalities, so I really appreciate it. And I'm wondering, it seems like Splat is positioned for students who are, not fluent in coding and want to potentially explore some software outside of like just graph and calculator based software, and don't necessarily feel so strong in math and are not looking into hard sciences for the rest of their life. But it's a way to do this stuff quickly and to make meaning of data and to have it all be pretty intuitive in front of you. Do you feel like this could be a good stepping stone as well for students who maybe are not thinking about doing statistics, data science, quantitative things full time, but because of the ease of this, they might later go on to using more advanced statistical software and doing more advanced statistical work? Or potentially is there like the idea that you know, students are going to be so enamored with this that when they hit the wall of like using R and Python for the first time and a lot less intuitive, that could be a drawback? What do you think on all that?
I think that that if they would use software like this and they would become ecstatic, it would be because of the statistics, not the software. But if the statistics brought them, or if Splat in this case brought them a kind of a small step into a quantitative or a more quantitative field that they had not thought of before, and it lit a bit of a fire and encouraged them, I could see the software doing that. But I think for those students who are going to do something really quantitative, it's an unknown quantity to me. I would tend to think that a first statistics class for students who are going to go on to something quantitative ought to be with Minitab or JUMP or something like that. I see this as serving the AP teacher, AP stat teacher, whose principal doesn't want to fork over the dough, or with our current situation, students that don't have connectivity and they're at home. In Iowa, that's definitely a problem, where there are places in Iowa that are just connectivity deserts. So I see Splat serving those people. But maybe I could see as a little stepping stone to get what I would think of as the excitement of data analysis and just playing with data, learning new things, making inference from the data. If they find that they're interested in that, then I think it's a perfectly fine stepping stone. That sounds like that's a long answer to a short question, I guess.
I've always been an advocate for best available technology. And so, you know, for a long time, people said, well, I have to use the TI, you know, graphing calculator because from a practical point of view, that's the best available technology, even though it may not be the best technology for what we would like our students to be using. And so I think this gives a no cost option that's between the TI and a full-blown stat package. And I think you could I think a student that used this would not have a really hard time transitioning into a statistics package. Maybe more so transitioning into something like R, but transitioning into a stat package, I think it would be an easy step from here to there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for just developing this. It seems like an amazing tool, especially for students who are just getting into data analysis. Like I've tried with R with my own high school students, and it can be such a roadblock initially that, especially with the AP Stats curriculum being so full, I throw it out the window pretty quick. So I see this as like a great middle ground that's also free like R, that also doesn't require internet connectivity like R, but is going to get them doing something on a computer, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I like R. I mean, if I have a hobby, it's programming. I guess this is written in Java, which I think is like about my 6th language. So it keeps me off the streets, I guess.
Chris, Iowa, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
I really like that this is not online based. And I was wondering if you could like gently suggest to College Board that they figure out a way that students can use something like this on the AP exam. Just saying.
Well, first of all, I'm sure I could suggest all sorts of things. Then they would say, "Oh, thank you for suggesting that." I tend to think that there are, at this stage of the game, entirely too many security problems to letting kids use computers online for the AP exam. I mean, way back in the very first exam, when we were putting that together, there was some discussion of being able to do that, somehow deliver the exam by computer. And there were just so many roadblocks. I think it's a great idea. I don't think the technology is there, though. The security, I think, is going to would be a big problem. Well, that, and they certainly wouldn't listen to me. Now, if you told them, that would do it.
Well, maybe they'll just do like the IB program did and just use an algorithm to assign grades.
Yeah.
That big brouhaha over the.
Oh God, don't get me started. I
Yeah.
teach IB as well.
It's made for a great example about algorithmic bias for data science courses. I'm seeing it picked up in a number of places as an example.
Yeah, actually, my students, I did a whole report on how, like, systematically they were biasing down our scores because of the specific factors that make our school a low-income school and getting lower scores than normal. And they're like putting that onto our school as like a predictor, and that was awful. And then I wrote a whole thing to them, and they ignored me. And so then I wrote another one, and they just changed all our scores to like things that should have been too high, which is like great. So they're like patching it together ad hoc. It's ridiculous, but that's beside the point.
Other questions for Chris? Chris, I really love this software. In fact, I downloaded it recently, and it's been nice for me because I've been too cheap to buy certain software to put on my computer, and I've been using your software. And this is great.
Well, I'm glad to have helped.
Well,
Calculating batting averages, no doubt.
Partly, yes.
And I put the link, if you didn't get it from Rebecca's email, I put the link in the chat to the Dropbox folder where you can find the software and the user guide.
Thank you. And I typically update that thing on the AP Stat community too. So, and if somehow you lose that, you can always just shoot me an email. I'm happy to give whoever the link.
I do really like, especially given what's going on right now with COVID and our schools. I know here in Georgia, there's a lot of rural schools, especially with connectivity problems with the internet. And I do think your software helps to give more of an equitable footing for many of our students. At least they can get it on a device and not have to have that internet connectivity, which is just a real plus. So thank you so much. So we got about 5 minutes, and I wanted to talk about our next chat, which I think we decided that we'd like to schedule on about a 3-week basis. So I think that puts us, is it October the 18th? Would that be the next 3 weeks? Let me pull up I've got a lot of dates floating in my mind right now. Let's see. No, October the 15th. Is that correct? That's Thursday, October the 15th at 4 o'clock. And I'm excited to announce that Dash, who's with us today, is going to join us on the 15th, and he's going to talk about Skew the Script, which we've mentioned before. And if you're not familiar with his website, you need to join this chat and start exploring the website, and then come join us on the 15th while Dash will be here to talk about it and to answer your questions. So
I won't be here on the 15th, Chris, so you'll be on your own then.
Oh goodness.
I'm sure you're up to it.
Don't desert me.
I'm sorry to miss Dash, but I have talked to him before, so I am familiar with it.
I hope Rebecca's here to remind me to record, because I always forget that.
I'll remind you, no worries.
Okay, thanks. Chris, thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure.
This was wonderful, and you've made so much available for us, and we really appreciate that for the community. So any other last minute questions or anything that anyone would like to bring up before 5 o'clock? At least that's Eastern time, 5 o'clock Eastern time.
Just lunchtime here.
I know, it depends on where you are.
Well, now I know why Chris doesn't answer my emails sometimes for long stretches. I'm busy working on Splat.
Well, now that I admitted that we have email back, why I have that, I no longer have that as an excuse.
Yes, that was convenient, Chris. All right, then thank you for coming, and we'll see you on October the 15th. So long.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you again, Chris.
Congratulations, Chris. Chris just became a grandma yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I did. First time grandmother yesterday.
Oh, good Lord.
I tell you
Congrats.
what, maybe I'll show you a picture next time. If Dash will give me a couple of minutes.
Of course, we can take the whole time, actually. That'd be great.
No. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Thanks so much, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Stop recording. Stop recording.